So I don't know if you've ever heard this idea that making your first 100,000 is more difficult than making your first million. And I know that Alex Hormozi has talked about this in the past. I first heard it from him a couple years back, and I think I've heard a couple other people talk about it, but I feel like when Alex talks about it, he is really hitting the nail on the head in a variety of ways. I want to talk about a few of those, but I also want to share some of my own insights that I've gathered, at least from somebody who, I don't know, a couple years back, probably crossed that 100K line, and really over the last 5 years, I've been working with several millionaires and multimillionaires, and I want to share some of my insights as to how I view the difference between 100K and $1 million. Okay, so firstly, I want to talk about two of the many things that Hormozi talks about, which I think really contribute to that bridge between 100K and $1 million. One of the first things he talks about is having capital to deploy. And again, I know this seems obvious, right? But having capital to deploy is a big one because you're at least able to buy back your time in some sense. You're able to outsource, hire other people. In today's world, you're able to invest in new AI and new software and whatnot, right? And when you're just starting out from 0 to 100K, not necessarily zero, but at least when you're starting out, you don't necessarily have that capital, or more specifically risk capital, to test different things, right? So having capital to deploy is important. The second thing he talks about is no proof of concept. And I feel like this is actually a huge one for entrepreneurs who, I guess I would say, like, are either getting started out or specifically are trying to scale, because this has a lot to do with offer validation. And again, I don't want to get too into the weeds about what Alex Hormozi talks about, because you can listen to some of his talks, and he's going to articulate it much more, and he's going to go more in depth with it. But ultimately, there's a lot of people that I have found that want to launch something new, or they want to start like Facebook ads, or they want to do something, but they may not necessarily have like offer validation with it yet. So again, for somebody like myself who works with certain businesses, specifically like the health and wellness space, maybe there's a new thing that they want to launch, like a business owner, they want to launch this new product, this new offer, but has it been tested? And this is something that is important, both to know that, you know, when you put money into advertising, you're going to get some money back, right? But you also need that market feedback. So meaning that if you do not have an offer that's been out in the marketplace and has had a chance to be tested and validated, you have not had feedback from the market itself to tell you how to improve the product, how to refine it, and essentially how to fulfill on a more efficient scale. So again, capital deployment and offer validation. Those are two of the things that Hormozi talks about, which I think are critical. Okay. Now, what I want to actually share are two areas that I don't think enough people pay attention to. And I think that as you are building your business, your empire, if you will, I think that this is important to recognize. Okay, so there's two things, and this first one I know seems obvious, but I'm going to shape it in a way that might not seem so obvious. Okay, and this has to do with skills, or more specifically, skill architecture. Okay, now there's kind of several levels to this. The first one, and you just have to be honest with yourself, is, do you have the skills? Okay. From 0 to 100K, I think that people need to recognize, become aware of the fact that you just straight up need more skills. You're like, hey, how come I haven't at least been able to cross the 100K mark? You legitimately might not have the skills. And I don't really know how to say it more plainly than that, and I don't want to talk too much about that. I would say that this is the age, in the age of AI and information and tech. I know YouTube has been around for forever, but it has never been easier to gain more skills. Okay, so again, that's probably like that 0 to 100K mark. Beyond that is skill architecture. Okay, now what this means is that you have skills, you have a multitude of skills now. Do you know how they relate to the marketplace, or more specifically, your niche and industry? And that second part is still pretty important, because you can maybe do a number of things well. You might have a number of skills, but like, do they matter? How do they apply? Like, for example, there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are starting to get into AI, right? Like, so I do like introductory AI workshops for different businesses, right? The most common example of people, or the most common use case that people are using AI for right now, is just like ChatGPT, and they're maybe doing research with it, or they're maybe rewriting emails. A lot of people are also like using it for fun. all three of those technically could be skill. When I say for fun, I mean like creating pictures or doing like fun little projects, right? All three of those in theories could be some kind of skill, but they don't necessarily apply to a use case for making money. And that's a lot of the way that I look at AI, and how I was really fortunate enough to get into AI when it first came out. Again, I'm just like lazy. I'm always trying to figure out how to do things more efficiently, right? But I'm always looking at it through the lens of business and marketing. So my point is that yes, the first layer in skills is actually having the skills. The second thing is, how do you frame your skills? How do you architect? How do you scaffold your skills to actually help yourself or help your clients? And I think that that's something that people need to pay more attention to. It's like, hey, take some time. I don't mean like just a night or just a moment of peace and zen. I mean actually taking some time to frame your skill architecture to have some sense of like an offer or fulfillment. You have them, or you can have them, but I don't think that we take enough time to figure out like, what does this architecture look like? Okay, so skill architecture is the first thing that I think really makes the difference between 100K and $1 million. Okay, the second thing here, okay, is your CAC, CAC, your customer acquisition cost. Now, you may have heard about this before because this is a term that has been in the business and marketing space for a long time. However, to put a little bit of a different spin on this, okay, your the idea, the concept of customer acquisition costs, I believe has actually changed a bit, because that term, your CAC, used to primarily apply to paid acquisition, to paid traffic. So it's like you're putting money into, let's say, Facebook ads, and then the lead or leads audience, they go through the funnel, and then on the back end you have made money back, and now you're able to reconcile those costs against what you've made, and then you're able to figure out what your customer acquisition cost is. And that term is something that we've primarily attributed to paid traffic. However, with the age of AI and technology, and especially AI slop that's out there, right? There's this big, and I've talked about this in other videos, there's this big trust recession that has happened, is happening, is continuing to grow with audiences where they're like, hey, is this thing that I'm seeing or being sold to or sold with, right? Is it AI? Is it real? Like, they're just more skeptical. Like, there's a bigger gap between with consumer trust, okay? And the reason I bring that up is because there takes a little bit more effort now from a qualitative standpoint. You see, customer acquisition CAC, okay, very quantitative. I put money in, I get money back, and now I'm able to figure out what my customer acquisition cost is from a quantitative output, a data, numbers, strictly straight up, right? Now there's a much stronger qualitative component to it, right? And you could look at this as your follow-ups, like how many calls do I have to make? How many emails do I have to send? How many texts do I have to send? There's a qualitative component to that customer acquisition cost that needs to be paid attention to. However, there's also now organic traffic, right? So I've been working in paid acquisition for a number of years, and over the last few years, I've really been, I was gonna say leaning into, but I was kind of like, it's by necessity. I lean into this recommendation or this encouragement with clients, like, hey, you really need to consider what it means to have an organic presence in your social media, okay? Now, I want you to imagine like organic social media without the paid traffic part of that, because ultimately you can have a social media presence, and unfortunately social media can be really unpredictable. In fact, it's too qualitative in that standpoint. There's can be some algorithmic predictability and whatnot, but it's very qualitative. However, I do believe that the best approach nowadays for market reach is actually to combine those two, to have a kind of a hybrid approach where I have paid acquisition and I also have organic. And the organic is very much going to help with that credibility and trust. But that's the point I'm trying to make with this concept around CAC, is because CAC is no longer just a paid acquisition quantitative metric, it's a qualitative metric from the organic standpoint. So in a nutshell, it's like, in order to get from 100K to a million, yes, I need to have the skills, we already covered that, okay? But what does it actually take to acquire a customer? And not just from a paid ad standpoint, what do I have to do from a qualitative standpoint? Does that mean that I have to reach out to a certain number of businesses. In what way are you reaching out? Are you making calls? Are you sending emails? Are you going in person? All of these things contribute to your customer acquisition cost. So now there has to be this dollarized quantitative metric, but also a qualitative component. And I could really summarize all this as like, hey, are you going the extra mile? But again, broadly speaking here, as much as I appreciate a lot of what Hormozi is talking about, you need to know that if we're trying to bridge that gap between 100K and $1 million, I need to have the skills, of course. And again, like AI is a part of that now, right? But there's also this aspect of literally asking yourself, what does it take to acquire a customer? What is my cost, my holistic cost, both from a money standpoint and an output standpoint, and in what way, shape, or form does that take? Okay, so that's my insight for today. I don't have any like fancy call to action, nothing, nothing too far to go with. If you really appreciate this video, if it has helped you in any way, of course, like anybody else, the like and subscribe always helps, and be sure to be dropping more in the future. Thanks so much.